Rich, I had a coach when I was playing junior hockey. He had a saying, and I'm going to paraphrase, of course, but he said, "Nothing will ruin a career faster than ladies and alcohol."
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to athletes or just men in general picking ladies, what kind of advice would you give for, okay, look for these things, look for those things, this is good, this is bad, not just, okay, she's beautiful and pretty face.
Yeah, something to tattoo on my forearm so I can remind myself.
You don't have enough forearm to write it all down, Dave.
Use my arms later.
That's a solid piece of advice. And notice that it comes from a coach. It comes, like it comes from a seasoned man that's seen life. There's a lot to expand on when it comes to women ruining a guy's life, including alcohol. But I don't think it's her fault. I think it's his fault for not setting the tone, for not leading the relationship, for not being able to say no, for not understanding what women respond to properly. A lot of the times women will say one thing and respond negatively to it, and they'll respond positively to what they say they don't want. Right. So it's like, I think that if athletes got their head around I would be more than happy to be the official, guy for professional athletes that could square them away and set them straight with women so they don't screw up their lives. I don't think there's anybody out there doing that.
There's a gentleman that I've done some work with. I don't want to give away too many details just because I haven't asked him for it, but he did some work with some different NHL teams, led them to some Stanley Cups. More of a lifestyle coach, did a lot of work with the Navy SEALs. And so he ended up getting recruited to do an interview with the San Diego Chargers, I guess now the LA Chargers. I think they are now, but they were asking him, okay, like what would you do to help our players? Because a lot of the work that he did in the NHL was getting guys to think outside the game, to get to feel more appreciated, more valued by the team, and that kind of bought into the team culture and led him to win Stanley Cups. Mm-hmm. And so he said to the gentleman he was interviewing with the Chargers, and he said, I want guys to start thinking about their families, talk about some of the stuff that we talked about, this, I guess they call it more of a red pill mindset, but looking at things more objectively, not blindly taking what you've been told. And I want them to think about retirement. And the GM stopped in there and said, whoa, if we empower these guys, they're going to think that they have more power than us. We can't have that. We want to give them a little bit of power so they perform, but not too much. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's the dynamic that you see between leadership and the foot soldiers, because that's basically what the athletes are. The leadership of the team. They have the rah-rah in the locker room. They they tell them what they're up against. They they big them up and they tell them to get out there and get it done. And then the foot soldiers are expected to get out there and execute and do the work, and that's totally fine. Because I think that young men should seek the counsel and the advice of older, more seasoned, successful men that understand how the world works, that have their best interest at heart. That's the other thing that's incredibly important too. I mean, if you lead a sports team, you're the head coach, whatever, you have the best interest of that team and the season at heart. So you're going to tell them exactly what works and what doesn't work if you're good at your job.
Going back to Formula One and more of an individual sport when you're in that cockpit and you're racing, to compare it to a football team where you've got 80 guys on a team, do you think there's a difference as far as the mindset when it comes to a team event?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you watch, I think it's Drive to Survive on Netflix, you really start to notice that Formula One isn't a single-player sport. It's certainly a team sport, but at the end of the day, when the game's being played, it's more or less a single-player sport. I mean, sure, you got to rely on the pits and the guys on the radios to monitor the, all the details of the vehicle as it's being driven. But yeah, it is a really big difference. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've always gravitated towards individual sports like racing. I was in shifter kart racing for a while when I was younger, and I've always just kind of loved doing anything fast on something that I can compete against other guys with on a one-on-one basis. I don't love the idea of team sports just because you have to rely on other people, and it's just part of me that I don't really like. But yeah, that's an interesting observation that you made there.
Do you think it's more of a hive mind when it comes to these big hockey teams? You get a lot of cliques going around in the locker room, and I mean that can influence a lot of decisions too, based on relationships, decisions about alcohol, drugs, all these different things.
Yeah, I think you're right, but to some degree, there's always a leader on every team. Like there's always a captain on every team, right? So like you'll need your Michael Jordan, you'll need your Wayne Gretzky's of the world, your Tom Brady's of the world to sort of like lead the team.
Dave, if you enjoy what you just saw, we do new clips every single day, twice a day on the Clips channel. You see clips right here. And beside Dave's crotch, we have a full-length show every single Sunday, right by my hand.
Click right here.